Thanks a lot for joining today's meeting, on time especially. This will be the third session on validation with JOSM. And we have Ralph here again today. And as mentioned, he has a lot of experience with validation and working with JOSM. And through this session itself, it's not just about him sharing tips. It's a good chance for you all to stop us and let us know if you have any questions or any challenges that you faced before, and how perhaps we could help clarify some of your questions. First, the second thing is, before I pass it over to Ralph, today will be a bit different. Today, we will be going through a walkthrough of using JOSM itself. So I would like to invite everyone to prepare your JOSM as Ralph goes through step by step on how would you start to tailor. Sorry, the words are lit. How do you adjust your JOSM program? How do you switch on certain stuff? What are the tools to take note? And how do you go through the validation process? So I already have JOSM in my background, and I will be going through this with Ralph. Ralph, to you.
Thank you, Bernard, and welcome everyone. As Bernard said, I will be showing you how to set up your equipment so that you will be able to validate effectively. There are certain things that need to be added, certain things that need to be switched on. And once we've got that up and running, the following two sessions after this, we will actually do some validating. I hope you have all got your JOSM open and ready. I will start sharing now. Right, hopefully you can all see my JOSM. You should be seeing a sea view with the coastline.
Yes.
Right, lovely. I will get started now and open up my JOSM. This is the Java OpenStreetMap editor. The first point that I will make is that while you can set up in all different languages, I'm afraid Burmese is not one of those at this stage. So I will not be showing you that. Right, so you've got your normal JOSM, and there are all sorts of tools and things available for you to do your mapping, but let's take a look at what you need to do the validation. The first point that we do need to do is to go to your selection, your preferences. And that's the little two bootstraps at the top here. And once that opens up, you have got all of the things that you need all the way down here. Right, so you can select which ones you want, which ones you don't want, and GPS points. Let's have a look at the GPS points to start with. Now, we use the GPS points to check the accuracy of the positioning of the imagery against GPS tracks that have been previously added. Now, some of those are very difficult to see. Your default is very, very fine lines and very, very thin. So I would suggest, in actual fact, that you switch on draw large GPS points and select a size with the GPX lines that you will be able to readily see. Now, I've got it set at a 4. And that is very helpful for me. Now, once again, you would also need to see it against the background of a whole lot of things you're looking at. So I've set a purple color, single color, and I've set purple so that it will show me clearly where the GPX tracks are against the background that I am using. So that's the first one, is to set single color and choose a color that you find suitable for your setup on your JOSM. Right. As I said, the language, the default auto determine is on, and unfortunately you cannot set it at Burmese. However, there is a whole load of languages. You choose whichever one is most suitable for you on your JOSM, so that you can work and understand that. Right. The other ones that we will be doing is the map paint styles. But before that, we're going to do plugins. I will look at tagging presets, and we can look at keyboard shortcuts and a few others. So let us start off with the plugins. If you click on the plugins, and you will see a whole list of items come up. So what we're going to do, if you recall, in the last session, let me see if I can. In the last session, we called up a number of different plugins, the building tools, imagery, JOSM batch downloader, PT Assistant, Map with AI, Utils plugin 2, Mapathoner, Rel tool, and measurement. So go back to that list if you do not remember what we were going to do. And you can select those. So let's do that. So what you need, first of all, is to type in the building tool. So when you start typing, it comes up to the item that you're looking for. Not doing that. That's not good. So here, the buildings tool, right? Buildings tools, and you click on that. Then you move down, and let's get rid of that. So buildings tool is essential. The conflation tool, you may need at some stage, so that is a good one to add. Conflation. I have got the customized public transport stop, but you don't actually need that unless you are working with the route relations with regard to bus transport. That helps you to add in bus stops and things like that into a bus route relation without actually damaging it or splitting it yourself. So that's an important one if you're doing a bus route. Fast draw you don't need. Field papers you don't need. Imagery offset. This allows you to check the imagery offset, and is quite useful for adding or changing quite quickly. The Mapathoner. This one is quite important. It helps you to find unsquared buildings or non-round buildings. Unsquared or non-orthogonal is what is usually used. Mapillary, if you want to work with photos. Map with AI, if you want to use check your work against the AI versions. The measurement tool. The measurement tool is quite important. I use this to measure the width of a road. If it's less than 1.8 meters wide, you cannot drive a four-wheel vehicle down there. So this is important to find out whether you're just looking at a wide path or you are actually looking at a road that can be used by a four-wheeled vehicle. I also use it to measure the width of waterways. If a waterway is wider than 10 meters, then you should actually show the sides of the waterway in a polygon. So you would draw the outline of the waterway itself, but always to remember that all the data and information must be on the midline of the waterway and not on the outer polygon. The PT assistant, this is important because this gives you a tool called the double split, and the double split is what helps you to quickly and correctly add bridges, chords, and also it does tunnel culvert. Relation validation plugin is a good one, especially if you come across some relations and you need to find out what's going on there to see if they're damaged or need repairing. The rel toolbox is also another one if you're dealing with relations in your validation. There is also a reverter here, but you don't need that straight away. Later on, when you become more advanced, you will understand how to revert someone's work without damaging or anything else that they may have worked on. So that's important. Do not use the reverter until you better understand the work that's being done and relations. Right, so you've got most of the things here. Terracer is something that you could use if you are drawing terraced buildings. So all you need to do is draw an outline, put in the number of units within that outline, and click the terracer, and it will divide that polygon up into the same number of units. So that is quite quick and useful to do. The utils plugin 2. That is also a very important one. It gives you quite a lot of extra tools that you may need when you are doing your work. So having done that, you go to update plugins. No, you go to OK. Sorry, don't worry about those two. You go to OK and click on OK. I'm not going to do that because I have already got those in my usable toolkit. So click OK, and that should download all of those that you have ticked. If you go to installed at the top here, it will then show you whether you have successfully downloaded all of those that you actually need. Right. Are there any problems at this stage?
If anyone has any issue, feel free to pause the meeting. Let us know on the chat or just unmute yourself and let us know. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Going back to our view of the preferences, and we will go to the map paint styles. Right, the first one that you would need to download is the Missing Maps Youth Mappers Validator Check. Type in missing and it will come up, Missing Maps Youth Mappers Validator Checks. Click on that and click on the select available styles, and it will go into your personal folder. The next one, and is quite important, is the inline validation. Inline validation you should all have, and you should have switched on. That means that anything you draw and anything you map will be immediately highlighted if there is a problem with it. Now, this is a limited tool. It doesn't show you everything, but it does help you while you are mapping and also while you are validating. So that is quite an important one. And I would suggest that anyone who is mapping with JOSM should have the inline validation switched on at all times. They will be able to quickly spot any mistakes they are making while they are mapping. Right, so there are a number of others. The Apple Validator is a good one. However, the Apple Validator does not exist on the map paint styles in JOSM and has to be added afterwards. So let us have a look at adding the Apple map paint styles. Let's just find it. Right. I'm putting in the chat the URL, and you put that into your URL address line. And when you click on that, what it will do is it will download a zip file into your downloads. So Apple paint style should be in your downloads file. What you can do is move that to a file of your own choice, where you know you will be able to find it. Once you have moved it there, you go back to your JOSM, and in JOSM, you're looking at your map paint styles. There is a small plus sign at the top right-hand side of your paint styles. You click on that, and it opens up a place where it says, give a name. I would suggest that you type in a name that you understand. Apple Validator is a good one to use. And the URL file, you can select from your drop-down menus. So I've got it in my desktop downloads. I can select it there. So inline validation, and you open that. And it automatically opens up in the URL file. Sorry, no. What you should be doing is in your downloads, move that to a file that you want, and then open the file. And you will be selecting the main street map CSS file. That's presets, icons. Oh, I've got that wrong. Okay. No, you open the URL as I showed you before. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, just the URL that you saw before. Okay. Okay, so that is it, and you name your map paint style, and you press OK. Now that should appear in your file there, Apple Validator. Right, I've posted the URL, so that will help you to download that. Okay. Right, now let's move on. The next one that you want to add is called a layer checker. The layer checker gives you, tells you which items have got a layer added to it. You can quickly and easily see whether the layers have only been added to the bridge, or whether the layer has been added to the whole length of a waterway. Now, we do not want waterways to have the -1 layer, because then it avoids the need for adding bridges, culverts, and fords. And we need to have the information because it is very important. In a heavy rainfall area, you need to know, is there a ford ahead? in which case can we get through the water if it's flooded. Bridges and culverts are just as important. So please add the layer checker so that you can check for that. It also shows if someone has cheated. In other words, where they have two overlapping buildings, if they add layer 1 to one of the buildings, that no longer shows up as a problem. And that is not correct. That the actual overlapping buildings problem should be solved. There is one for waterways, which is also very useful. And you can download that onto your personal file as well. For those of you working with access for disabled people, there is a wheelchair routing attributes, but that is not necessary for validation. There is one for modified highways. If you are working on highways, that helps you to understand modifications. The colorways. The colorways is produced by one of our global validators. And what it does is it sets up the highways in different colors so that you can see where they are continuous and where they are split, and what classification they've got. So it is very helpful and useful to have the colorways. Now, Myanmar is busy doing a damage assessment. So a disaster damage assessment would be also a good one. However, what you have to be careful of, there's also a preset I will show you for damage. But what you have to be careful of is the tags that are being used on your project. Please check with the project that the tags that you have in your presets are the same as the ones being asked for in the project. The project manager or creator will have set up what tags should be added to any damage that you are busy adding. So please do not confuse the preset with the requests of the project itself. This is why it is so important to read all of the information that you need. Now, if you are moving on to doing a third pass validation, then the TM task grid is quite an important one. It helps you to number the task grids that you'd upload onto your JOSM so that you can go back to the tasking manager and look up the information and history of that task. Who was the one that validated it? Who are the people that mapped on it? All of that information is available in the tasking manager. Okay, there can be, if it's helpful to you, is a map paint style called last updated, which will show you who was the person that last updated an item, and that is also very useful for you to know who was working on it at the last time. So those are all. Now they're not. You can see there's a whole lot other that are there. There's one called building levels label if you are getting more involved in the three-dimensional of buildings, and that is quite important to look at that. So there is a whole lot of map paint styles. You need to go through and experiment and look at them in regard to whatever specific items you are interested in, and use the individual map paint styles to see which one helps you in your work. There is also, that's the same goes for the plugins. have a look up and see what is useful for you. Now, I remember, let's go to the tagging presets. And you can see there are certain ones that I was working on the Mayo Chidu disaster activation, and they have a disaster damage assessment preset which is set, so I am using that. There is a natural disasters danger, there's a disasters tagging. If you are doing power lines, there is the power line mapping. So you can see that there's a bar damage assessment as well. So there is quite a lot here, which is going to be helpful to you in damage assessment. But remember again, as I said, read the project instructions and work to the damage tags that the creator has asked you to use, because that is the criteria they will use when they do any of their searches for extra maps from the data. Right. You've got a cool toolbar on the left-hand side, and you can set which ones you want to see and which ones you don't want to see. So use the toolbar and set up those that are necessary and that you want. Now, keyboard shortcuts, there is a whole long list of them, and it's impossible to remember and know them all. However, if you get to know the necessary ones that you always use, like the select tool, the buildings tool, the line tool, which is Control A, those are tools which are you use all the time. You'll get to know them as you are working, and a combine is C, a join is Shift J. So all of those you will get to know while you are mapping and working, and they will help you to work a lot quicker. Right, the data validator, I want you to go into the data validator and make sure that all of these are clicked. You need all of these to be clicked because you want to find as many errors and problems as possible. So please make sure that they're all ticked. On the utils plugin 2 settings, you don't need to worry about this. All of this will be okay when you download it. So you don't need to worry about any of that. Imagery, of course, you know that you can select imagery and add that to your usable file. And depending on whether you are using the ones that you really need is the Bing, the Esri, the Mapbox Satellite, the OpenCycleMap, and the OpenTopoMap. And those are the imageries that are very useful to you. The OpenTopoMap and the OpenCycleMap both give you contours, and contours show you the lay of the land. You can check if a waterway is a highway or a waterway by looking at the contours. If it goes up over the top of a hill and down the other side, it's not a waterway. If you want to know where the waterway ends or starts, you can go up a valley to the high point, and just remember that from that high point, the water will flow downwards. And that will be, the highest point will be the start of where the water starts to flow down. So that will help you to find the endpoint of a waterway. So contours are important. Right, having done all of that, you now have your JOSM that is ready for validation. I would like you to remember this as it's important. You might miss quite a few things if you don't have this switched on. Now, we have got some time left, and I am going to now go to the basic flowchart for validation. And I have one here, which is already translated. Thank you to Bernard and his team. You have got them translated. Now, Bernard will give you a link to this, so you will be able to follow it and look back and check. Okay, there in the chat, Bernard is giving special thanks to your translator. Right, so the process that we do is we open up a task in JOSM, and we first of all check that all the features have been added. Now, reading this chart, this is the way it moves. You open the task into your JOSM. You check all that the features are added. Now that I will start off at our next session, when we go into JOSM, I will start off there and start showing you how to do all of these steps. But I will just run through these steps now. So you check all the features are added. What it should say is, yes, they are all there, so you will continue on. No, they are not there. So what you need to do is there only a few items to add? In which case, you can add it them yourself and then validate, then move on to the next part of the validation. Are they valid? In other words, the items that you're looking at, should they be added or not? Are they important or not? And of course, the instructions will tell you which items should be added. So if you are looking at a buildings project which says only add buildings, then if there are a few missing highways, you don't need to add those. That will be handled in a later project when highways become important. All right, if there's too many to add, of course, you will invalidate with a note to the person that marked the project as complete. Remember, this is not an error in mapping. This is an error in marking completion. And the person who marked the task as complete should get a message from you. So you tag the person in the comments and you say, there are missing buildings in this project. Could you please add them and mark it as complete once you have finished? Thank you. And invalidate the task. I don't want validators to spend too much time fixing up tasks because there are so few validators and a lot more mappers. So we would rather use the validators to check that everything is correct rather than to be doing too much of the mapping themselves. Right, so if you have got yes, then you move down to the next section, which is run the validation function. And that is the JOSM inline validation function. And you run that, and it will give you a whole long list of errors and warnings. If you've got your map with AI switched on, then it will also give you indicators from the AI what it thinks is wrong. Now, not all the things that are marked on the AI are actually wrong, the same as not everything in the errors and warnings are wrong or valid for you to actually fix. For instance, if it's talking about a multi-polygon in a waterway that is not quite correct, that is not of interest to you in a buildings mapping project. So you will look at all the items that refer to buildings. An example of is it valid, because one of the things you do is if you go to yes, there are errors, there are a few errors, are they valid? Are those errors valid? One of the things that is not valid is residential highways. It will always tell you, oh, it's a residential highway, it should have a name. So that is something that's wrong. We cannot, when we're mapping from the remote imagery, know that the mapping, that the name of the road should be filled in. We don't know the name of the road from the satellite imagery. So that is an example of something that should be ignored. If your mapathoner shows, all right, let's go to the next one. The run the mapathoner orthogonal tool. If you run that and it says buildings are not squared, the simple and easiest thing is to press Q on your keyboard, because it highlights all those buildings. Press Q on your keyboard and it squares all of them. And this is a no-no. You must not do that, because when it shows unsquared buildings, it shows all of the buildings that are unsquared, and it includes those that should not be squared because they have a special angle or a special shape. So please, you cannot just automatically square all buildings. You need to take a look at each one and square them individually or in a small group. To get a small group, you press the A on your keyboard twice to get your double selection tool, your lasso tool, and you can run a lasso around 3 or 4 buildings and then square those, and then move on to the next batch of unsquared buildings to fix those. So run the Mapathon orthogonal tool. So if there's no unsquared, you can move on. If there is unsquared, then you just look, are there only a few and are they valid? If there's too many to fix, then you should invalidate, especially if they are valid. So please check. If there's too many and they're not valid, please don't invalidate. Go back and carry on with run the next one, run the map paint styles. So you can switch on your validator map paint styles, which is the missing maps, the inline, the Apple. So you can run all of those to have a look and see if there's anything that needs fixing. And the map paint styles will highlight any other errors. Now, that's all again. Once you've done the map paint styles, of course, if there's no issues, you go on and check for alignment issues. So read the instructions again. Do the instructions say that the already mapped features should be moved to fit the imagery? Or should the imagery be moved to fit the features? And that is important. You need to know which way round it goes. You also need to check, has the correct imagery been used? If they ask you to use Mapbox or Bing because they think that's the most up-to-date or the clearest, then that is what they should be mapping to, and the alignment should be to the requested imagery and in the way that they are requesting. So you check for alignment issues. And last of all, you have a visual look over it, because you as an experienced mapper could still have a look and see, whoa, hang on a second, something's not right here. Because when you look at the task and you see that the tertiary road, the yellow road running through your screen, is not completed, doesn't go anywhere. That is something that's wrong. The roads should all be linking up and moving around. I will show you a way to make sure that they're all connected and that they are needed, but that will come in our next session.